In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the certificate titled Building Resilient Communities Through Outdoor Recreation. Now, this is a graduate level certificate that is part of the Masters of the Outdoor Recreation Economy program, and it can also be taken on its own if you have an interest in this area. Now, the focus of this certificate is really about looking at the way that outdoor recreation and tourism can help to build resilient, sustainable, and livable and healthy communities across all types of contexts and around the world. And so whether we're talking about urban communities or suburban communities or rural communities, there are many different reasons why these communities might look towards outdoor recreation and tourism as a community and economic development tool. And there's many different ways in which outdoor recreation and tourism can be developed in these different communities to address the contextual needs and realities of that community, but also to achieve the desired outcomes. And those outcomes might be different. You know, for example, it might be about increasing the health and mobility of the community through increasing access to the outdoors. It might be about equity. It might be about making sure that all residents within a community have more equitable access to green space and open space and outdoor recreation amenities. It might be about tourism and trying to attract outside dollars into the community to help stimulate the local economy. And it also might be about attracting people to migrate and move to the community in recognition that there is a need for new people to move in with new skills and new ideas to help ensure that the community is going to be viable and vibrant moving forward. And I think the important thing to note here is it's also not necessarily just one of those things, but likely a combination. And as a result, it really takes a holistic viewpoint and a really deep understanding of what does community development look like? What does economic development look like? What does the outdoor recreation and tourism industries look like? How does this all come together within a much broader system? We talk about housing. We talk about just community planning. We talk about city budgets, county budgets, and where that money is coming from. We look at conservation of public land and increasingly private land as well. And looking at where do we get our key resources from, whether that's water, broadband, electricity. All of these things need to come together to create these resilient and healthy communities, especially when we think about the context of things like climate change and some of the impacts that's having. You know, we look at tourism and outdoor recreation communities. They, like communities in general, are really vulnerable to changes in the climate, whether that's increased risk of wildfire, floods, excessive heat, as we're seeing across many communities, particularly within the summer. And there needs to be actions taken at the community level, at the regional level, to help residents and community members deal and adapt to these changing circumstances. And outdoor recreation and tourism can play a really, really key role in that. And so this is ultimately the focus of the certificate. And the certificate is split up into 5 different courses, 4 of which are content-based courses, and the 5th being the project that helps to culminate all of the skills and knowledge that you learn. Now, the reality is that this certificate has really been structured around what I call the community economic development process. So how communities can adapt different strategies and tools for development, and hopefully development that is sustainable and resilient, to help improve quality of life as well as build community capacity. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that the certificate doesn't necessarily need to be taken in a particular order, but if you do have the ability to do so, I definitely recommend taking OREC 5018, which is Community and Place Matters First, because that is really a foundational course that really explains, you know, what are communities? What are places? Why are they important? How do we create divisions and boundaries? And what is the implications of these? And then also, like, how do communities operate and function? How does that affect development and growth? And what role can tourism and outdoor recreation play here? Then we can move into OREC 5008, which is focused on strategies for building resilient communities. And so what we're looking at here are different theories and strategies that are commonly used by communities to develop assets, to develop a sense of place. It might be a strategy focused on regional collaboration or talent attraction, or what we call economic gardening. So really developing local talent and making sure that they have the resources that they need to be successful instead of just spending money on attracting outside businesses into a community. Now, all of these different strategies are talked about within the context of tourism and outdoor recreation, and we take a deep look at different case studies from across the US to see how different communities have adopted any of these strategies or any combination of these strategies to successfully develop the outdoor recreation economy. Now, the next course that I recommend taking is the course that's focused then on the tools for building resilient communities. And so, once you've identified the different strategies, then it's a matter of sort of examining what are the tools available to help implement those strategies. A key tool in this case is often funding and understanding and navigating the different programs and policies that exist that help to dictate the funding that's available and to whom and when, but also looking at things like planning, like the vast array of different community plans that exist and how they can sometimes be redundant, but also sometimes come together in a way that can help sort of create a landscape and create a roadmap for what outdoor recreation development should look like within a community. Now, in the final course, we start to look at building community capacity. And the reason I like students to sort of take this at the end, if possible, is because really, when we talk about community economic development, we're really talking about not just creating economic opportunities and developing community assets and infrastructure, but also developing the community itself, the people who make up that community, and making sure that they have the skills, the knowledge, the relationships to really take charge of their own future and dictate what happens to it, versus being in a situation where they are at the receiving end of development that might come from outside interests that don't best reflect what the community themselves want. And so this course is really focused on, how do you undertake the different strategies and tools to develop your community, to build resilience, to be more sustainable, to be more livable. But in doing so, how do you also build trust and capacity? How do you create sustaining community visions? How do you develop community leaders? How do you meaningfully engage with different stakeholders from different groups that may or may not have been equitably represented in the past? How do you collaborate locally, regionally? How do you bring in resources that are available from all different areas and sort of build a collective impact so you can really be effective and efficient with what resources and what capacity that you do have? And so I like to see that as a great culmination of the certificate. Now, in saying that, I recognize that it may not be possible for all of you to take those courses in that order, and that's okay. In courses where it helps to have a little bit of background knowledge, we've provided that content as an introductory sort of model so that students can engage with that if they haven't taken a previous course. And we've had students take it in various different combinations and all have been very successful in doing so. But if you have any other questions about this certificate, I'm more than happy to answer them. This is really fantastic work. When we talk about community economic development, we talk about building resiliency within communities. There's a lot of great work that's happening across the country at a whole range of different levels. And there's some really fantastic partnerships that are existing out there that are making sure that the work is getting done, that increasingly more communities have equitable access to the outdoors, that outdoor recreation development is being done with climate resiliency in mind, and that we're looking to create economic opportunities for local communities. And the tourism and outdoor recreation economies are just one way of sort of leveraging and harnessing that. So happy and excited to share this content with you. And if you have any questions or interests about this area, please don't hesitate to reach out.